Jake Martinez stuffed his last clean shirt into the travel bag and zipped it shut with satisfaction. 6 months on the Kepler research station had been amazing, but he was ready to go home. The smell of his mother's cooking and the feeling of real grass under his feet called to him from Earth. He grabbed his personal tablet and checked his schedule one more time. Transport leaves at 1400 hours. Perfect. The hallways of the space station hummed with their usual activity as Jake made his way toward the transport bay. Scientists from 12 different alien species worked together here in what everyone called the greatest achievement in galactic cooperation. Jake still felt proud to be part of the first human exchange program. His job as a mechanical engineer kept him busy fixing everything from air recyclers to gravity generators. The work was good and the pay was better, but nothing beat the idea of sleeping in his own bed again. His roommate Zektar was probably in Lab 7, working on some quantum physics problem that would hurt Jake's brain if he tried to understand it. The Thylorian had been the perfect roommate for the past 6 months. Tall as a basketball player, but thin like a reed with skin that looked like living crystal and 4 arms that moved like a dancer. Zektar loved human comedy shows and made coffee better than most humans Jake knew. They had fallen into an easy routine of work and friendship that made the long days pass quickly. Jake turned the corner toward the transport bay and nearly walked into a crowd of people and aliens gathered around the main information display. The screen flashed red with emergency symbols. His stomach dropped as he read the announcement scrolling across in multiple languages, including English. Emergency lockdown in effect. Solar storm activity has reached dangerous levels. All transport operations suspended until further notice. Estimated duration 21 to 28 days. All personnel report to department supervisors immediately. 28 days. Jake stared at the numbers as if looking harder might change them. His leave was supposed to be 2 weeks. He had dinner plans with his sister Lisa in 3 days. His nephew's birthday party was next weekend. The transport ship captain standing near the display looked as frustrated as Jake felt. "Nothing we can do about it, son," the captain said when Jake approached. "That star out there is throwing radiation like an angry god. We tried to fly through that, and we'll be cooked before we clear the first moon." Jake nodded and tried to hide his disappointment. Space was dangerous, and he had known that when he signed up for this job. He turned around and walked back toward his quarters, thinking about how to break the news to his family. At least Zektar would probably be happy to have more time to work on his research project. He found his roommate in their shared living space, staring out the large window at the swirling storms on the gas giant below. Zektar's crystal skin showed patterns of deep blue, which Jake had learned meant the alien was thinking hard about something. His 4 arms moved in small gestures, as if he was working through equations in his head. "Hey, Zek," Jake said as he dropped his travel bag by the door. "Looks like I'm stuck here for another few weeks." Solar storm grounded all the ships. Zektar turned toward him, and Jake was surprised to see the alien skin shift to purple. In 6 months of living together, Jake had never seen that color before. Purple seemed to pulse through the crystal patterns like a warning light. "Jake, we need to talk," Zektar said, and his voice carried a tone that made Jake pay attention. "I should have told you something before, but I did not think it would matter. The timing of this storm is very bad." "What do you mean?" Jake asked as he sat down in his favorite chair. Zektar moved to the window and placed 2 of his hands against the glass. "My people have biological cycles that happen every few years. We call it the burning time. During this period, we become difficult to be around." Jake waited for more explanation, but Zektar seemed to be struggling with the words. "Difficult how?" he finally asked. "We become territorial and aggressive. Our body chemistry changes, and we release pheromones that most species find overwhelming. The station has special isolation quarters for when this happens, but they are being repaired right now. I was supposed to be gone during my cycle. The purple in Zektar's skin grew darker, and Jake could see his roommate was genuinely worried. "How long does this burning time last?" Jake asked. 3 to 4 weeks, Zektar replied. "And according to my internal biological clock, it will begin in approximately 6 hours. Jake felt like someone had dropped a weight in his stomach. Stuck on a space station with an alien roommate going through some kind of biological crisis that made him dangerous. To be around. This was definitely not in the job description he had signed. "Is there somewhere else you can go?" Jake asked. "Maybe Dr. Valineth could set up something in the medical bay." Zektar shook his head, and his skin shifted to an even deeper purple. "All isolation areas are occupied or under maintenance. Station command has been informed, but there are no other options. You will need to request emergency quarters transfer immediately." Jake thought about this for a moment. The station was crowded, and emergency quarters usually meant a sleeping bag in a storage room somewhere. He looked at his friend, who was obviously distressed about the situation, and made a decision that surprised himself. "What if I stay?" Jake said. Zektar's 4 eyes went wide, and his skin flashed between purple and red. "Jake, you do not understand. The pheromones alone could make you very sick. My behavior will be unpredictable. I might become hostile." "You've been a good roommate for 6 months, Jake replied. "I don't think you're going to hurt me. Besides, someone needs to keep an eye on you to make sure you don't do anything dangerous." "This is not wise," Zektar said, but Jake could see something like gratitude in the alien's expression. "Probably not," Jake agreed, "but we're friends, right? Friends stick together when things get tough." As if summoned by their conversation, the station's intercom crackled to life. "Attention all personnel. Environmental systems are preparing for unusual biological activity in Section C Level 5. All non-essential personnel should avoid this area until further notice." Jake looked at Zektar and realized their quiet life together was about to become very complicated. The alien's skin had started to show flecks of red mixed with the purple, and the temperature in the room felt like it was rising. Jake, Zektar, sighed quietly. "Thank you for staying, but I need you to promise me something. If I become too dangerous, you will leave immediately. Do not try to help me if it puts you at risk." Jake nodded, but privately decided that he would cross that bridge when he came to it. How bad could it really be? They were friends, and friends took care of each other. He had no idea that in the next few hours he would discover just how unprepared humans were for alien biology, and just how much his simple decision to stay would change everything. Jake woke up sweating, and it took him a moment to remember why his room felt like a sauna. The change in Zektar had started exactly when the alien predicted it would. 6 hours after their conversation, his roommate's crystal skin had shifted from purple to a pulsing red color that seemed to glow in the dark. The temperature in their quarters had risen 15 degrees and showed no signs of stopping. Zektar sat in the corner of the living area, making a low humming sound that vibrated through the walls and made Jake's teeth ache. The alien's forearms moved, constantly rearranging objects on the table in patterns that made no sense. He had been doing this for 3 hours, and Jake was starting to feel dizzy from watching their repetitive movements. "Zek, are you okay?" Jake asked, but got no response. His roommate's eyes had taken on a distant look, as if he was seeing something that wasn't there. The humming grew louder, and Jake felt a strange tingling sensation in his nose, followed by a sweet chemical smell that reminded him of burning plastic mixed with flowers. Jake's personal communicator buzzed with an incoming message. The small screen showed Dr. Valinith's spider-like face, with her 8 eyes blinking in a pattern that meant concern. "Jake, I need to speak with you immediately, but I cannot enter your quarters." Meet me at the corridor junction in full environmental gear. He found an environmental suit in the emergency closet and struggled into it while Zektar continued his strange ritual of rearranging objects. The suit felt clumsy, and the air recycler made breathing difficult, but Jake was grateful for the protection when he stepped into the hallway. Even through the sealed suit, he could smell the chemical tang that now filled the air around their quarters. Dr. Valenev waited for him in a much larger environmental suit that accommodated her spider-like body. Her 8 legs moved nervously as she spoke through the suit's communication system. Jake, I am amazed that you are still conscious. The pheromone concentration in your living area is beyond anything I have recorded. Most species would be unconscious or fleeing in terror by now. It smells weird and makes me feel dizzy, but it's not that bad, Jake replied. Is this normal for Thylorians? Nothing about this is normal, Dr. Valeneth said, and her legs tapped against the floor in agitation. I have studied Thylorian biology for 20 years. During their burning time, they typically isolate themselves in groups with other members of their species. The pheromones create a feedback loop that helps regulate their behavior. Alone like this, your roommate's system has no way to stabilize itself. Through the thick walls, Jake could hear Zektar's humming getting louder and more erratic. What does that mean? He asked. It means he will continue to get worse until his biological systems either find equilibrium or, Dr. Valeneth paused, or until they overload completely. Jake felt cold despite the heat coming from his quarters. Will he die? Possibly. But that is not the only problem. The environmental systems are struggling to process the excess heat and chemical output from his altered metabolism. If this continues, the life support for your entire section could fail. That could affect other parts of the station. As if summoned. By her words, the station's intercom crackled with an announcement. Attention, all personnel in sections B and C environmental systems are operating at maximum capacity. Non-essential power usage should be minimized until further notice. Jake looked back toward his quarters where strange shadows moved behind the door. What can we do? You need to evacuate immediately, Dr. Valev said. I can arrange emergency quarters for you in Section A. Your roommate will have to be sedated and isolated in the medical bay until his cycle ends. Will that help him? It will prevent him from damaging the station, but sedation during the burning time can cause permanent psychological damage to Thylorians. It is not a good solution, but it may be our only option. Jake thought about Zektar sitting alone in the corner, making that sad humming sound. His friend was scared and confused, and going through something he couldn't control. The idea of drugging him unconscious for 3 weeks felt wrong. Let me try something first, Jake said. Give me 24 hours to see if I can help him stabilize. Dr. Valeneth's 8 eyes focused on him with what looked like disbelief. Jake, you are not equipped to handle this situation. Thylorian biology during the burning time is beyond your knowledge. Maybe, Jake replied, but I know Zektar. I've lived with him for 6 months. I've seen him when he's happy and sad and excited and worried. I know what calms him down and what makes him feel safe. This is not your friend having a bad day, Dr. Valeneth said sharply. This is a complete biological transformation that could kill both of you. Jake looked through the small window in his quarters door and saw Zektar hunched over the table, still arranging and rearranging objects. The alien's movements had become more frantic, and his skin color shifted rapidly between red and deep purple. He's getting worse, isn't he? Yes, Dr. Valeneth admitted. His neural chemistry is becoming increasingly unstable. Without other Thylorians to provide proper pheromone feedback, his system is trapped in an escalating cycle. Then we don't have time to waste arguing, Jake said. Either let me try to help him or sedate him now. But watching him suffer isn't helping anyone. Dr. Valineth was quiet for a long moment, while her legs tapped against the floor in complex patterns. "You have 12 hours, she finally said. "If his condition has not improved by then, I will have to intervene for the safety of the station." Jake nodded and started back toward his quarters. "Jake," Dr. Valineth called after him, "remove your environmental suit gradually. The pheromone exposure needs to be controlled, or it could overwhelm your nervous system." He spent 10 minutes slowly venting his suit's air supply and mixing it with the corridor atmosphere before finally removing the helmet. The chemical smell hit him like a wall and made his eyes water, but he found he could breathe normally after. A few minutes. Whatever was in Zektar's pheromones, it didn't seem to affect humans the same way it affected other species. Back in their quarters, Jake found Zektar had moved from the table to the floor where he was arranging their collection of data tablets in increasingly complex geometric patterns. The alien's humming had changed to a series of mathematical sequences that Jake recognized from their late-night conversations about quantum theory. "Hey, Zek," Jake said softly as he sat down on the floor nearby. "How are you feeling?" Zektar looked up at him with eyes that seemed to focus with difficulty. "Jake, you should not be here. The burning is getting stronger. I cannot control what I am doing." "I can see that," Jake replied. "But you're still you in there, right? You're just dealing with some biological stuff." "The patterns," Zektar said, as he gestured to the tablets arranged around him. "I can see mathematical relationships that were invisible before. The quantum structures underlying reality are so clear now. But I cannot make the burning stop." Jake looked at the tablet arrangement and realized it actually did follow a logical pattern, based on processing power and memory capacity. Even in his altered state, Zektar was organizing things according to mathematical principles. "What if we work together?" Jake suggested. "You can see the patterns, and I can help you build something with them. Maybe that will help with the burning." Zektar's skin shifted to a lighter shade of red, and his humming became less frantic. "You would do that even though I am dangerous." "You're not dangerous," Jake said. "You're just going through something difficult. Friends help each other through difficult times." For the first time in hours, Zektar's skin showed flecks of blue mixed with the red. Jake took this as a good sign and settled down to help his roommate arrange data tablets while hoping Dr. Valineth's 12-hour deadline would be enough time to figure out how to help his friend. Jake spent the next 8 hours learning more about Thylorian biology than he ever wanted to know. While Zektar worked on his mathematical patterns, Jake searched through every database the station had access to looking for information about the burning time. What he found surprised him. The burning time wasn't just about mating like he had originally thought. It was a complex biological process where Thylorians temporarily rewired their brain chemistry to enhance their already impressive mental abilities. During this period, they could see mathematical relationships and quantum patterns that were invisible to them at other times. The downside was that their emotional regulation systems essentially shut down, leaving them unable to control their responses to stress or stimulation. Jake watched. Zektar arranged data tablets into increasingly complex three-dimensional structures that somehow represented quantum field equations. His roommate's enhanced mental state was obvious, but so was his distress. Zektar's skin color cycled rapidly between red-purple and occasionally flashes of orange that seemed to indicate confusion or fear. The pheromones served multiple purposes, according to the research Jake found. They helped Thylorians recognize others of their species who were also in the enhanced state. More importantly, they created a chemical feedback loop that helped regulate the extreme mental activity. In a normal situation, dozens of Thylorians would go through the burning time, together providing mutual support and chemical stabilization. Alone on the space station, Zektar had no way to regulate his enhanced mental state. His system was stuck in overdrive, with no natural way to calm down or focus. Jake realized this was like trying to drive a racing car without brakes or steering. The enhanced abilities were there, but they were uncontrolled and potentially dangerous. The more Jake studied the problem, the more he realized that humans might be uniquely suited to help. Other species were overwhelmed by Thylaurian pheromones during the burning time. The chemical signals triggered fight or flight responses that made it impossible for them to stay near an affected Thylaurian. But humans seemed to process the pheromones differently. Jake tested this theory by sitting closer to Zektar while the alien worked on his mathematical constructions. Instead of feeling afraid or overwhelmed, Jake found that the pheromones made him feel more alert and focused. His thinking became clearer, and he could follow Zektar's complex mathematical reasoning more easily than usual. Even more interesting was Zektar's response to Jake's presence. When Jake sat nearby and spoke in calm, steady tones, his roommate's skin color stabilized and his movements became less erratic. The mathematical work continued, but it became more organized and purposeful instead of the frantic pattern-making Jake had observed earlier. Jake started treating the situation like an engineering problem. He began documenting everything he observed about Zektar's condition. He noted how environmental factors like temperature, humidity, and air circulation affected his roommate's behavior. He tracked how different sounds and smells influenced Zektar's emotional state. Most importantly, he recorded which human behaviors seemed to have positive effects. The breakthrough came when Jake decided to play some music while Zektar worked on his mathematical patterns. He started with soft instrumental pieces, but Zektar showed no reaction. Then Jake tried classical earth compositions with strong mathematical structures. Bach's mathematical precision and Mozart's balanced harmonies seemed to resonate with something in Zektar's enhanced mental state. As the music played, Zektar's skin shifted to a steady blue color with occasional flecks of purple. His mathematical work became more focused and organized. The frantic humming stopped and was replaced by a quiet harmony that seemed to match the musical rhythms. The patterns are clearer now, Zektar said without looking up from his tablet arrangements. The music provides a structural framework that helps organize the enhanced perceptions. Jake felt excitement building as he realized they might be onto something. What if we try other structured activities? Cooking has mathematical ratios. Engineering problems have logical sequences. Over the next few hours, Jake experimented with different approaches. He prepared familiar foods that Zektar enjoyed and found that the familiar chemical signatures from cooking seemed to reduce his roommate's anxiety levels. He presented engineering puzzles that required both mathematical insight and practical problem solving. Each time Zektar's condition improved, and his enhanced abilities became more controlled and useful. The most surprising discovery came when Jake actively participated in Zektar's mathematical work instead of just observing. When they collaborated on problems together, Zektar's symptoms improved dramatically. His skin color stabilized, his movements became coordinated, and the overwhelming pheromone production decreased to manageable levels. Jake realized that the key wasn't just exposure to human presence but active human participation in the enhanced mental processes. Somehow human interaction provided the missing regulatory component that normally came from other Thylaurians during the burning time. I think I understand what's happening, Jake told Zektar as they worked together on a quantum field equation that was beyond Jake's normal comprehension, but somehow made sense while he was exposed to the pheromones. You need interaction and feedback to regulate the enhanced mental state. Normally you get that from other Thylaurians, but humans can provide a similar function. Zektar's four eyes focused on Jake with remarkable clarity. Your neural patterns are different from other species. You do not flee from the pheromones, and you do not become overwhelmed. Instead, you seem to process them in a way that creates complementary feedback. Complementary how? Jake asked. My enhanced mental state sees patterns and relationships with incredible clarity, but lacks emotional regulation. Your human brain provides that regulation through steady emotional responses and logical thinking. Together, we create a stable system. Jake felt a sense of satisfaction as he realized they had solved the immediate crisis. Zektar was still in his enhanced state, but he was no longer spiraling out of control. The collaboration between human steadiness and Thylorian enhanced abilities created a balanced partnership that worked better than either could achieve alone. The station's intercom interrupted their work with another announcement. Environmental systems in Section C have stabilized. Pheromone levels are decreasing to acceptable ranges. Jake looked at Zektar, whose skin now showed steady blue with occasional purple highlights. How do you feel? Different than I have ever felt during previous burning times, Zektar replied. The enhanced perceptions are still there, but they feel controlled and useful instead of overwhelming. I can think clearly about complex problems without losing emotional stability. Jake smiled as he realized they had turned a crisis into an opportunity. Maybe we should document this process. Other humans and Thylorians might benefit from knowing how this kind of collaboration works. Yes, Zektar agreed. But first, we should solve the problem I have been working on. The quantum field equations I can see now reveal a more efficient way to configure the station's environmental systems. If we implement these changes, it will not only handle future Thylorian burning times but improve overall life support efficiency. Jake looked at the complex mathematical patterns Zektar had created and realized his roommate had spent the last day solving problems that could benefit the entire station. What started as a biological crisis was turning into a breakthrough in interspecies cooperation and space station design. Jake thought they had everything under control until the station's main environmental processor failed at 3 a.m. The emergency alarms woke him from the first decent sleep he had gotten in 2 days. Red warning lights flashed throughout their quarters, and the intercom crackled with urgent announcements in multiple languages. Critical system failure in environmental processing. All department heads report to emergency stations immediately. Sections D through G prepare for possible evacuation. Jake sat up and looked around for Zektar, who was standing at their main computer terminal with all 4 hands moving rapidly across different control surfaces. His roommate's skin showed the familiar blue and purple patterns, but now there were flashes of orange that Jake had learned meant urgent concern. What's happening? Jake asked as he joined Zektar at the terminal. The main environmental processor has suffered a cascade failure, Zektar replied without looking away from the data streams flowing across the screen. Multiple systems are failing in sequence. The electromagnetic interference from the solar storm has disrupted the quantum stabilizers that regulate the processor's core functions. Jake studied the system diagnostics and felt his stomach drop. Environmental failure meant life support failure for most of the station. Thousands of beings from dozens of species depended on the atmospheric processing systems to maintain breathable air, remove toxins, and regulate temperature. Without it, they had maybe 18 hours before conditions became dangerous. Can they fix it from the main engineering section? Jake asked. The repair teams cannot reach the core systems while they are unstable, Zektar said. The radiation levels and quantum fluctuations make it impossible for anyone to work in that area. Even with full environmental suits, the exposure would be fatal within minutes. Through their quarters intercom system, Jake could hear evacuation procedures being announced for the affected sections. Station command was preparing to sacrifice entire areas of the research facility to save the rest. Years of scientific work would be lost along with irreplaceable research equipment and data. Jake watched the system diagnostics and realized that conventional repair approaches would not work fast enough. They needed a completely new solution. and they needed it quickly. He looked at Zektar, whose enhanced mental abilities had already helped solve several complex problems over the past few days. "Can you see a solution with your enhanced pattern recognition?" Jake asked. Zektar's skin shifted to deeper shades of orange mixed with purple. "I can see the mathematical relationships that caused the cascade failure, but the solution requires both theoretical understanding and practical implementation. My enhanced state provides the theoretical insight, but I lack the emotional regulation to work effectively under this kind of pressure." Jake felt something click into place as he realized what needed to happen. What if we worked together like we did with the other problems? You handle the mathematical analysis, and I provide the practical engineering knowledge and emotional stability. "Jake, this is far more dangerous than our previous collaborations," Zektar said. "The quantum field equations involved in environmental processing are incredibly complex. One mistake could make the situation worse instead of better. And if we don't try, everyone in sections D through G loses their homes and work," Jake replied. "Plus, the cascade failure might spread to other systems. We could lose the entire station." Zektar was quiet for a moment while his skin cycled through several color combinations. "There is something else you should know. Working with quantum field equations this complex while I am in enhanced state will require much closer collaboration than we have attempted before. You would need to maintain direct contact with me throughout the entire process." "What kind of direct contact?" "Physical contact that allows complete pheromone exposure. Your human neural patterns would need to integrate fully with my enhanced mental processes. We do not know what effects this might have on your brain chemistry." Jake thought about the thousands of people and aliens who would lose their homes and work if they didn't act. He thought about his friends throughout the station, who were counting on someone to find a solution. The choice seemed obvious despite the risks. "Let's do it," Jake said. They moved to the main computer terminal in their quarters, and Jake positioned himself so he could maintain contact with Zektar while they worked. As soon as Jake placed his hand on his roommate's crystalline skin, the world changed completely. The pheromone exposure was unlike anything Jake had experienced before. His perception expanded, and suddenly he could see the mathematical relationships that governed the station's environmental systems. Quantum field equations that normally hurt his brain to think about became as clear as simple addition problems. More importantly, he could feel Zektar's enhanced mental processes and provide the emotional regulation and practical thinking that kept them focused on solutions instead of getting lost in theoretical possibilities. Together, they formed a mental partnership that was far more capable than either could achieve alone. Working as a unified system, they analyzed the cascade failure and identified the root cause. The solar storm's electromagnetic pulses had created quantum resonance patterns that destabilized the processor's core functions. The traditional approach would be to shut down the system and rebuild the quantum stabilizers, but that would take weeks and require parts they didn't have. Instead, Jake and Zektar developed an innovative solution that used the station's research equipment in ways it was never designed for. By reversing the polarity of several quantum field generators and connecting them through the communications array, they could create a feedback loop that would stabilize the environmental processor without shutting it down. "This is brilliant," Jake said as he understood the full scope of their solution. "We're essentially turning the entire station into a giant environmental filter." "More than that," Zektar replied. "The new configuration will be more efficient than the original design. It will handle larger populations and provide better atmospheric processing with less energy consumption." They worked together for 6 hours implementing their solution. Jake's practical engineering knowledge guided the physical connections and system modifications, while Zektar's enhanced mental abilities handled the complex quantum field calculations required to make everything work together. the breakthrough moment came when they activated the modified system and watched the environmental readings throughout the station shift from critical red to stable green. The cascade failure stopped spreading and began reversing itself as the new configuration took control of atmospheric processing throughout the facility. Emergency systems returning to normal levels, came the announcement over the intercom. Evacuation. Procedures are suspended. All sections report normal atmospheric conditions. Jake felt exhaustion wash over him as the intense collaboration ended and his perception returned to normal human levels. Zektar's skin showed steady blue with flecks of silver that Jake had never seen before. "How do you feel?" Jake asked. "Changed," Zektar replied. "The collaboration has affected both of us in ways I did not expect. I can still access some of the enhanced mental patterns, even though the direct connection has ended." Jake realized he felt different too. His understanding of the quantum systems they had worked with remained clearer than it should have been. The intense collaboration had created lasting changes in both their mental processes. "Did we just solve more than the environmental crisis?" Jake asked. "I believe we have discovered something entirely new about interspecies cooperation," Zektar said. "The integration of human neural regulation with Phylorian enhanced abilities creates capabilities that neither species can achieve alone." As if summoned by their success, Dr. Valinith's voice came through their intercom. "Jake and Zektar, please report to the medical bay immediately. The entire station wants to understand how you solved an impossible problem in 6 hours." 2 weeks after the environmental crisis, Jake found himself sitting in the station commander's office trying to explain how he had accidentally become an expert in interspecies neural integration. Commander Hayes, a stern woman from Earth, listened patiently as Jake described the collaboration process that had saved the station. "So let me understand this correctly," the commander said as she reviewed the reports on her desk. "You discovered that human neural patterns can regulate and enhance Thylorian mental abilities during their biological enhancement period." "That's right," Jake replied. "Humans don't get overwhelmed by their pheromones like other species do. Instead, we seem to provide the emotional stability they need to control their enhanced mental state." Dr. Valinith shifted in her specially designed chair, and her 8 eyes focused on Jake with scientific interest. "The brain scans we performed show remarkable changes in your neural pathways. You have developed new connections that allow you to process quantum mathematical concepts far beyond normal human capability." Zektar, whose skin now showed a steady blue with occasional silver highlights, nodded in agreement. "The collaboration created permanent enhancements in both our mental processes. I retain access to some enhanced pattern recognition even outside of the burning time period. Jake can now understand quantum field relationships that took me years of study to master." Commander Hayes leaned back in her chair and looked thoughtful. "The implications of this discovery extend far beyond our station. If humans can serve as neural regulators for enhanced Thylorian mental states, this could revolutionize scientific research throughout the galaxy." "There's more than that," Jake said. "During our collaboration, we identified similar potential partnerships between humans and other species. Our neural flexibility seems to be unusually adaptable to alien mental processes." Dr. Valinith pulled up holographic displays showing brain scan comparisons between humans and 12 other known species. "Jake is correct. Human neural architecture shows remarkable plasticity compared to other species. This suggests humans could potentially interface with many different types of alien mental processes." "Interface how?" Commander Hayes asked. "Think of humans as universal translators for consciousness," Zektar explained. "We can bridge mental gaps between species that normally cannot collaborate effectively. Human emotional regulation combined with alien specialized abilities creates hybrid mental systems that exceed what either species can achieve alone." Jake watched the holographic brain scans and realized the full scope of what they had discovered. This isn't just about Thylorians and humans. We could potentially help dozens of species work together in ways that were never possible before. Over the following days, Jake found himself at the center of a galaxy-wide scientific revolution. The news of successful human-Thylorian neural integration spread rapidly through the interstellar communication networks. Research stations throughout known space began requesting human personnel, specifically to serve as consciousness bridges for multi-species projects. The Kepler Research Station became the testing ground for what scientists began calling the Human Bridge Protocol. Jake worked with volunteers from different alien species to map the neural integration possibilities. Each collaboration produced surprising results and new insights into consciousness and mental cooperation. With a crystalline researcher named Verdith, Jake discovered that human pattern recognition could enhance alien mathematical visualization abilities. Working with a tentacled aquarian called Deep Current, he found that human emotional stability allowed the aquatic species to focus their predictive abilities with unprecedented accuracy. Each partnership revealed new possibilities for mental cooperation between species. Zector, meanwhile, made breakthrough discoveries in quantum physics during his regulated enhancement periods. The mathematical insights he gained while mentally integrated with Jake led to advances in space travel technology, faster than light communication, and energy generation. What started as a roommate crisis had become a foundation for galactic technological advancement. "I still can't believe this all started because I missed my transport home," Jake said as he and Zector worked together on their latest project, designing specialized space stations for multi-species neural integration research. "Sometimes the most important discoveries come from unexpected circumstances," Zector replied as his skin showed the silver-flecked blue that had become his normal coloration after their mental integrations. "Your decision to stay during my